Before anything else, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel because that helps our work a lot to keep going and make sure you don't miss any content. Turn on notifications to get everything firsthand, and let's dive into this full breakdown, because today we've got deep analysis, information, and that straight talk fans appreciate. The read on that game leaves a strange feeling exactly, because when you calmly re-watch every single possession, it never really looks at any point like the Golden State Warriors were run over. For most of the matchup, the team controlled the flow, tweaked the tempo, and imposed its own pace. The intensity showed up on both ends of the floor. The offense flowed with constant ball movement, the defense responded with communication and activity, and the collective effort gave off the sense of a group trying to rediscover a standard of consistency. The breaking point came at the end, when the accumulation of minutes started to weigh. As the wear and tear piled up, fatigue exposed a limit you just can't hide over a long season. When the rotation is short, exhaustion comes to collect. In general, reaching the end of a close game completely gassed leaves that bitter taste and opens debates about whether a team is really built to sustain a longer playoff run. It is a fair doubt, especially because winning-time basketball demands maximum intensity, quick reads, and a body that's up to the task. But on this particular night, the context changes the evaluation. When you look at the full picture, it becomes easier to accept the result without turning everything into a crisis. Sometimes the opponent has one of those special performances where the level of execution is so high that no tactical adjustment can fully shut it down. That is exactly what happened. Scotty Barnes delivered a performance that needs to be acknowledged the moment it happens. He impacted every area of the game, far beyond just putting points on the board. He finished the night with 23 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 assists, dominating the glass, igniting transition, and punishing every attempt the Warriors made to change defensive coverages. With a performance at that level, there is no single mistake to blame. This is not about a lack of effort, nor about glaring failures in the game plan. This is about a player operating at a truly rare level. What made things more complicated was that Barnes wasn't alone. Toronto had more players putting up high volume. 3 guys crossed the 20-point mark, among them Emmanuel Quickley and Brandon Ingram, forcing Golden State to defend multiple threats at the same time. There was no way to load up the defense on just one focal point and live with the risk. Every time Golden State responded, put together a run, or flirted with swinging back control, there was an immediate answer on the other side. These are the kinds of games where all that's left is to absorb the hit, take the lessons, and not allow the loss to turn into unnecessary weight. Even so, there were positive aspects on the Golden State side. Draymond Green scored 20 points and showed an offensive aggressiveness that hasn't always been there this season. Jimmy Butler contributed 19 points, bringing steady pressure, physical play, and presence in big moments. Stephen Curry got close to 40 points, taking on massive offensive responsibility, stretching the opposing defense and forcing long rotations. The biggest concern is not the production, but the load. Curry logged more than 40 minutes, basically the entire game. In some matchups that is unavoidable, but turning that level of dependence into a habit is not sustainable long-term. That's where the discussion about depth and rotation begins. With key absences like Gui Santos, Trace Jackson-Davis, and Jonathan Kuminga, the options were reduced. The bench forced smaller lineups, and, without many big bodies beyond Al Horford, the physical disadvantage was obvious. Even so, the team battled until the end and stayed competitive through 4 quarters and overtime, which shows discipline and effort. The frustration comes from the fact that this model has a ceiling, especially when the game goes long and the fight for rebounds ramps up. Pat Spencer was also missed. In a game like this, an extra organizer could have eased the load on Stephen Curry's shoulders. It is understandable that the coaching staff manages minutes and keeps the bigger picture of the season in mind. But in games decided in the margins, those stretches of rest for the main star make a huge difference. In a low-margin scenario, every decision gets disproportionate weight and every possession is worth gold. It is necessary, however, to put everything in perspective. There was no emotional collapse, no lack of desire, no sign that the season is slipping out of control. It was a tough matchup against an opponent whose player had a historic night. That happens even to top-tier teams. What matters now is to flip the switch quickly because the schedule doesn't wait and the next game comes right away. Once the ball stopped bouncing, another topic went back to dominating the news cycle. Trade rumors involving Anthony Davis. The conversation keeps resurfacing non-stop, but it loses strength when you analyze the details. Davis has struggled to string together a sequence of games with low availability, and that directly affects his on-court value. Talent is not the issue. It is the ability to be consistently on the floor. For Golden State, a high-level center who can't play regularly does not solve the main problem. There is a simplistic belief that just adding size is enough to fix everything. The game doesn't work like that. Height only matters if it is consistently available, night after night, filling a key role. Otherwise, it becomes an expensive question mark that limits roster flexibility and complicates future decisions. On top of that, discussions about an extension and long-term salary for a player who is already past his chronological peak make things even trickier. With the league operating under stricter caps and harsher penalties, teams building contenders have shifted their priorities toward depth, durability, and versatility, not just name recognition. The current financial landscape has changed the logic of constructing championship rosters. Gigantic contracts without proper planning come at a heavy cost. Sacrificing multiple rotation pieces and draft picks for a player with a recent history of absences becomes hard to justify. For Golden State, the sporting and financial cost of a bet like that would be enormous, and the on-court fit is not simple. Other destinations for Davis show up as possibilities, like Atlanta or Chicago, franchises at different stages of rebuilding or searching for identity. In those cases, the gamble might make more strategic sense. For the Warriors, the equation does not add up. Giving up depth for a star who still needs to prove physical consistency this season does not align with the current project or with the timeline of the roster. When you look closely, the Warriors' needs are clear. The team does need size, but it also needs reliability. It needs players who can defend, battle on the glass, and close games without constant, minute restrictions. That points much more toward solid, functional bigs than toward big-name stars paired with high risk. In parallel, the buzz about other stars keeps circulating around the league. There are always superstars evaluating scenarios, weighing competitiveness, and thinking about the next step in their careers. These questions involve contracts, internal relationships, and perfect timing, rarely resolving cleanly. And Golden State, because of its recent history, always ends up mentioned whenever something big starts to move on the market, not necessarily through their own actions, but because circumstances pull their name into the conversation. What matters in the short term, though, is what lies directly ahead. The schedule keeps coming, and every game demands a mental and tactical response. Losses like the one against Toronto test the group's maturity. The challenge is simple and brutal at the same time. Not getting stuck in what already happened and stepping on the court again with renewed focus. This roster has shown resilience at other points, even in the middle of ups and downs. There is a foundation to believe it can respond again. The last month has been full of highs and lows, with good stretches interrupted by stumbles that made it hard to build sustained momentum. Even so, there has been progress in defensive reads, offensive movement, and overall intensity. Even in defeats, the structure has looked more organized than it did at the beginning of December. That cannot be thrown away because of one draining overtime. At the same time, Stephen Curry's workload needs to be reconsidered. Keeping him routinely above 40 minutes is not a long-term solution. The team needs to find rest windows without losing control of the game. That requires bench players to take on responsibility, stabilize the offense, value possessions, and reduce the need for heroics. The more aggressive version of Draymond Green is part of that because it forces defenses to respect more options and opens important spacing. He doesn't need to score 20 points every night, but he does need to keep the threat alive to break schemes that clog the paint. Jimmy Butler, in turn, brings a different type of impact. He injects toughness, physical contact, and the ability to score in tight, ugly possessions. At the end of games, That skill of manufacturing points in the middle of chaos is crucial. The key is avoiding too much offensive predictability by maintaining variety in actions and collective reads. Ultimately, everything keeps circling back to the same central issue: depth. Absences, injuries, and restrictions have shaken up rotations and forced improvisation. Smaller lineups can compete in stretches, but the physical demands of an overtime period expose the lack of size and strength on the boards. That reinforces the priority of internal development and, at some point, surgical moves in the roster. In the middle of all this, another rumor has gained traction. Behind-the-scenes chatter suggesting that Giannis Antetokounmpo may have, in private, defined his stance on the future. According to people with access to front office circles, that supposed quiet decision has triggered an aggressive race among franchises willing to pay practically any price. And at the center of that speculative storm, the name of the Golden State Warriors has emerged as one of the boldest players. Rumors say the Bay franchise has studied a huge, complex move with countless ramifications, something capable of changing the balance of power in the league if it ever left the drawing board. The idea would revolve around sacrificing future flexibility, draft picks, and promising young players in exchange for a short, explosive window built around Giannis. The debate among executives is divided. For some, it is strategic vision. For others, it is extreme risk. The silence from those involved only throws more fuel on the fire. Neither Giannis nor the Warriors have made any strong statements to confirm or deny anything. Precisely because of that, the speculation grows. People who follow the market closely believe something big might be in the works behind closed doors, even if the final outcome remains wrapped in uncertainty. The mere fact that such a possibility is being floated already has an impact. If there is any trace of truth to it, the NBA could witness a significant power shift, sparked by a backroom decision and an aggressive offer from a franchise used to thinking big. Until then, everything remains in rumor territory, but the topic never leaves the radar. And meanwhile, the fan keeps tracking every step, every hint, every roster move, and every game on the court, because that's where the real answer always shows up. Following this line of thought, it is important to understand how all these elements connect inside the same season-long story. You cannot separate what happens on the floor from what happens behind the scenes, because both directly influence the group's performance. The physical exhaustion of the roster, the heavy minutes of the main stars, the debates about depth, the rumors of moves, and the psychological impact of tight losses all form a single mosaic. It is all part of a larger process of adjustment, response, and rebuilding of a competitive identity. When a team lives through games decided in the details, the margin for error is minimal and any factor can become decisive. Accumulated wear changes decision-making. The absence of certain pieces affects the rotation. Outside pressure about possible trades creates noise. Even so, the most revealing thing is how the group responds. In the game in question, even with all the adverse factors, the team stayed competitive until the final moments. That indicates that, despite the flaws, there is structure, there is a pattern, there is a plan being followed. Making everything fit also depends on leadership in the locker room. Experienced players like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green play a crucial role in preventing isolated losses from turning into negative narratives that poison the environment. There is a huge difference between acknowledging problems and creating an artificial sense of emergency. The roster's maturity helps keep the focus on what really matters: practical corrections, not dramatics. At the same time, rumors involving names like Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo are part of the reality surrounding any competitive franchise. When a team has a recent title history and still has a star the size of Curry, it inevitably becomes a main character in every conversation about big moves. That constant attention creates expectations but also demands a cool head. Not every big opportunity is truly good, and not every aggressive proposal translates into a championship. In Giannis's specific case, the logic of a potential push is based on a clear equation. A generational talent raises any team's ceiling. However, the price in assets, flexibility, and depth can compromise the future for years. That is why decisions have to go far beyond immediate impact. The on-court fit, the age context of the roster, the coach's tactical system, and the franchise's financial health all need to line up. When a move of this magnitude is even considered, it's not just about excitement. It's about long-term strategy. That is where everything begins to come together. The team that went to overtime against Toronto, fought to the limit, and lost by details is the same one at the center of the biggest market discussions. That explains the duality of the moment. On the floor, there are signs of evolution and also clear limits. Off it, there are expectations for possible reinforcements. The balance between these two fronts will define how this season ends up being remembered. You cannot ignore that today's game demands rosters that are deep, versatile, and physically prepared. Games are faster, travel is long, and the mental load is constant. Relying on superhuman performances from Stephen Curry every night is not sustainable. The coaching staff knows this, the front office knows this, and the players themselves understand it. That is why developing young pieces, getting injured players back, and fine-tuning the rotation isn't just detail. It's priority. When you look at the whole picture, you can see the narrative is not one of disaster, but of transition. The team is not in ruins, is not lost, and has not lost its competitive identity. What you see is an experienced group adjusting its own game to a league that has changed, facing opponents with longer rosters and increasingly physical systems. Accepting that reality is the first step toward evolving within it. Losses like the one to Toronto, with a historic outing from Scotty Barnes and 3 other players scoring over 20, serve as a reminder that on a special night from the opponent, even a well-executed game plan may not be enough. There is no shame in that. The difference lies in what you do afterward. Mature teams absorb, correct, and move on. Fragile teams get lost in excuses. So far, Golden State has shown the former posture. It is also important to highlight that the upcoming stretch of the schedule offers clear chances to rebuild confidence. Games labeled winnable are dangerous, but they are also opportunities to establish patterns, solidify rotations, and give planned rest to the main names. Each matchup becomes a lab to test variations, bigger lineups, more balanced minute distribution, new roles for bench players, and defensive tweaks against dominant wings. The offensive fit between Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler gains extra relevance in that context. Each one brings a different layer. Curry stretches the floor and breaks defenses with impossible shots. Draymond organizes, communicates, and gives the team its tactical identity. Butler adds physical force, half-court reads, and the ability to score in tight situations. When the three are connected and surrounded by reliable role players, the competitive ceiling rises significantly. Coming back to the trade rumors, the key point is that none of it makes sense if it's not aligned with the technical project. There is no point in flipping half the roster just for media impact. The team needs to preserve its core identity of ball movement, collective reads, and committed defense. Any new player has to adapt to that pattern, not the other way around. That is the difference between chasing a quick jump and truly building a contender. This entire conversation, from the exhausting game to the big rumors around superstars, converges on a single idea. The moment demands active calm. It is not complacency, and it is not panic. It is about recognizing current limits, exploring internal solutions, rigorously evaluating the market, and at the same time competing with maximum intensity night after night. The season is long, stories change fast, and teams that look lost in December are often flying in April. The Warriors' script for this year is still being written. The recent loss is one chapter, not the whole book. The absurd numbers from Scotty Barnes and the effort from Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler paint the picture of a team that is still fighting, still believing, and still has room to grow if it can balance workload, health, and tactical adjustments. The invisible part, the work in practice, the internal conversations, and the front office decisions, may end up being the deciding factor between merely competing and truly fighting at the top. In the end, everything clicks into place when you understand there isn't a single isolated element that explains this moment. It's the whole: on-court performance, physical wear, rumors, the league's financial context, the roster's age, the hunger for titles, and the responsibility toward the future. When those pieces start to align, the path forward becomes clearer, even if it remains challenging. If you made it this far, it means you really enjoy this kind of deep analysis and want to keep following everything that involves the Golden State Warriors. So do this. Drop a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next updates. That supports our work in a big way and guarantees you're always on top of everything happening with the team. Want more content like this with full breakdowns and behind-the-scenes discussions? Just support with your like and subscription. Kai returned to the court with an impressive performance, reaffirming his status as one of the most promising talents in Asian basketball. In a recent game against Kyoto, he delivered a spectacular performance, scoring 20 points, grabbing 4 rebounds, and dishing out 3 assists. These numbers not only stand out in the stats, but also showcase the constant evolution of a player who becomes more complete with each game. From the first minute, it was clear he was ready to shine. Combining height, agility, and technical skills, he dominated the paint, leaving opposing defenders without answers. His mid-range shots were sharp, a reflection of the continuous effort he dedicates to improving his game. Moreover, his court vision became evident in decisive moments, distributing assists and connecting his teammates in important plays. When the game reached its most tense moments, Kai took responsibility, showing leadership and composure. In the third quarter, he made a memorable play by dribbling past 2 defenders, converting a crucial basket, and hitting the free throw after being fouled. Plays like this not only excite the crowd, but also highlight his ability to perform under pressure, a key trait for any player with ambitions of reaching the NBA. His fans have plenty of reasons to be excited. Kai is about to hit historic milestones in the B-League. With just 76 points remaining to reach 1,000 career points, he is approaching a select group of players known for their offensive consistency. Additionally, he has already surpassed 500 rebounds, establishing himself as a dominant presence in the paint on both offense and defense. He not only protects the painted area with authority, but also creates crucial second-chance opportunities for his team. Another important achievement is nearing. He is just 4 assists away from reaching 100 assists in the league. This reinforces his ability to create opportunities and involve his teammates in strategic plays. These numbers directly reflect the impact Kai brings to the court. His combination of imposing physicality, technical ability, and tactical intelligence makes him one of the most complete players in the league. Every point, rebound, and assist brings him closer not only to records but also to the dream of playing in the NBA. His performance has caught the attention of analysts and commentators who already consider him a player capable of raising the competitive level of the B-League. Comparisons with great past big men are starting to emerge, highlighting his potential to leave a legacy in international basketball. But for Kai, more than statistics or records, the important thing is to keep evolving and making his mark in every game. Kai Sotto's future has been one of the most debated topics among fans and experts, and one of the most mentioned destinations for him in the NBA is the Golden State Warriors. The franchise's fans have already started a campaign on social media asking for his signing, believing he could be the missing piece to strengthen the team. The Warriors are known for their fast and dynamic style of play, with an emphasis on long-distance shooting and constant movement. However, one of the team's weak points has been the lack of a dominant presence in the paint, someone who can protect the defensive area, grab rebounds, and bring balance to the team. Kai fits exactly that profile. His impressive height and game-reading ability are characteristics that could transform the Warriors' performance. Moreover, his international experience, facing different styles of basketball around the world, makes him an interesting prospect for a franchise looking to refresh its roster without sacrificing competitiveness. For the Warriors, signing Kai would represent a low-risk, high-potential move. He has already demonstrated his ability to contribute both defensively and offensively, being an efficient finisher near the basket and constantly improving his mid-range shot. Combining this with his competitive mindset and dedication to improvement, he would fit well into the team's system. The fans are excited about this possibility, knowing that players with Kai's skill set and potential are rare. For many, he could be exactly what the team needs to get back to competing for the top spot in the NBA. If you like the content, leave a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything about the Warriors. Thanks, and see you in the next video.